Welcome to Life Messages, brought to you by www.theato.org.
What about this one? Here's the third one. Popularity. We associate our identity with how known or how famous we are. This is why I feel sorry for famous people, because see, one mistake can mess up everything for them. We can't attach our identity to our popularity, whether it's your popularity in school or your popularity. You can't do that because, again, one mistake can mess up everything. Here's a big one, our possessions. We think what we have or don't dictates who we are. Whether you have a lot of materialistic things or whether you have nothing, whether you have a great home or whether, you don't have a home, that's not who you are. And here's the fifth one, and this one is huge. Pain. We let our past experiences dictate who we are. I mean, this is so dangerous, but this is the reality of most of us. We tend to tie our identity to these areas: our position, our performance, our popularity, our possessions, or our pain or past. When I went on the search to discover why I was here and to live a life of purpose, I ran into some speed bumps along my journey. And if you associate who you are to these areas, you're going to run into some speed bumps and detours as well. See, these things come to reroute you to the point where you end up at a destination other than the good works that God planned for you. See, I had a detour called fear and insecurity. And that birthed something through me, tying my identity to who I thought I was, to pain. I identified myself with my past. I remember being younger and, I lived in storefronts with my parents, and they would sneak us out of the store to take us to school every morning. I remember living in the garage. I remember living in shelters, and all these things shaped who I was. I was very insecure. I dealt with fear because of all the abuse that I went through growing up. In all these different areas, because of my past experience, it shaped who I thought I was. Proverbs 23:7 tells us, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Which means you become what you think. Now that's scary, because your experiences dictate what you believe, and what you believe, you become. Maybe you're listening to this, and perhaps you're struggling with your identity. Your identity may be connected to fear, comparison, guilt, shame, anger, low self-esteem, neglect, abuse. But this is what the Lord sent me here to tell you today. Listen, you're not what you think you are, but what you think you are. These are all identities that limit our potential. They put a lid on who you could be and what you could do. And here's the thing. Many times these things come from a belief that forms. Often is connected to repeated experiences that seem true because they repeat it so many times, or traumatic experiences that happen in our lives, strong, powerful events that shape the experience. And because we experienced it, we are now convinced of its truth. What about things like this? I'm ugly. Nobody will ever love me. I will always be rejected. It's my fault. I'm not good enough. This is why this is, again, so important and so scary, because your experiences dictate what you believe, and what you believe, you become. A belief is so hard to describe because it's easily, confused with a thought. A thought is resident in your mind, but a belief takes resident in your heart. Here's another way to describe it. A belief is not just in your heart, but rather over your heart like a contact lens being placed over your heart through which you perceive your experiences. Let me tell you a story that better illustrates this. I was at a conference and I heard this guy talk about, his daughter. And when she was young, her dad would disconnect from her every time she tried to communicate with her dad. It was almost as if her dad was giving her this stiff arm. So what happened was she developed this contact over her, this contact lens over her heart that said, men will always reject me. Now, every time she approached a male, she had this expectation of being rejected from a belief that formed. You see how her identity can alter her destiny. She could have been pushing away her husband, but because of our identity crisis, it could alter her destiny. This is why you got to guard your heart, because a belief will fulfill itself through its experiences. Your identity is so important because you won't be able to fully release your purpose. You won't be able to fully walk into your destiny if you don't know who you are. Remember, your identity is connected to your destiny. Let me show you something in Romans 8 real quick. Romans 8 verse 14. It says, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. The Spirit you receive does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you receive brought about your adoption to sonship. Now this is huge. It goes on reading, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. Again, I need you to know who you are. Verse 16. It says, the Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Now this is important. I mean, we're not just going to brush over this like he didn't just say we're God's children. Like your father is a person who is God. I mean, this is big.
Welcome to Life Messages, brought to you by www.theato.org.
Trust in you.